Last Sunday, if you tuned in or if you were here, last Sunday I mentioned we'll see how Jesus' message in the synagogue in Nazareth was received. And here it is. It's this Sunday that we understand that, well, initially the message got some favorable comment from the folks in the synagogue. They were amazed at his words. But then it was either the adult forum or coffee hour. And Jesus went from preaching to meddling. And they turned against him. What happened here? What happened? He was back in his hometown of Nazareth, where he grew up. His father was a carpenter there. He was known in the town, and they began to mutter, "Is not this Joseph's son? He's eloquent." But then he says, "Well, doubtless you're going to quote to me, no. And physician, heal yourself," and kind of challenged them. And then he went on to preach about how it was the work of God coming to people outside of the establishment of Israel. And he gave two incidences when Elijah and Elisha did that, and the Syrian who received the graces of God outside of Israel. Now he's talking to the hometown Israel group and reminding them that God's grace is expanded. Now, this is Luke's overture to his gospel teaching about the mission of Jesus of Nazareth. Luke's overture, the beginning of Jesus' ministry out in the world. Where better place to start than your hometown? Well, rough beginning. So they didn't like what he had to say, and they started grumbling at coffee hour, and they said, "Let's take it to the parking lot," and before you know it, they were at the edge of a cliff ready to throw him off. A rough beginning. I got to say, I think what happened with Jesus passing through the midst of them is that they got arguing among themselves because they had heard something that irritated them so much, and they were divided. You hear that division in the reading. Some thought, well, he's just a hometown guy, he's a smart aleck, and I knew him when he was growing up and stumbled his toe and said a dirty word. And the others were saying, this is heresy. Get him out of here. And they were arguing among themselves. And I think what happened here, he didn't sort of cloak himself like Harry Potter in a disappearing cloak and walk through the midst of them. I think they got so wrapped up in their own argument among themselves that it was easy for him to back off and to go somewhere else. That's Rick Callaway's interpretation. You can write that down. But this is Luke's beginning, the overture of Jesus' life of preaching. If you go back to the second chapter of Luke, Simeon at the gate, who's been waiting for the Messiah to arrive, begins this poetic overture of the arrival of the child Jesus in the synagogue. And he will be upsetting people. He is due for the rising and falling of many. And he will get into people's innermost thoughts. It's there in the second chapter of Luke. And that's what Jesus begins with. This rising and falling of many is about the Jubilee. And the Jubilee that he is talking about, this Jubilee is now fulfilled in your hearing. This Jubilee is a total reset of society. We're going to begin again. Debts are forgiven. Old grudges are forgiven. We're going to correct society so that they're no more extremely poor or extremely wealthy. And all of this was probably in the synagogue. That's why the conversation got heated. Because some were saying, no, I don't want that to happen. And others were saying, yes, here we come. 50 years I've been waiting for this. Jesus is set for the rising and falling of many. And he will get into their innermost thoughts. Translate innermost thoughts to prejudices, to fears and anxieties. And he was stomping on some toes. At the end of this reading, Luke has Jesus going on his way when he gets out of the crowd. The word that Luke uses is an Aramaic Greek word, which I can't pronounce, but it occurs several times in Luke's readings, in Luke's message, as Jesus is going about his journey of preaching his journey. He's going about to the cross and beyond. And Luke uses this same word of going on. So, this is an exegesis of Luke for you. Where does it come down for us? For the gospel, for the continuation of good news. Look at the first reading of Jeremiah and the Psalm and this beautiful passage from Corinthians. Jeremiah is all of the anxiety that a mature person would have, getting ready to face something hard. I'm just a boy. I got no business doing this. I would not be the one you want to have do this. But the prophet in Jeremiah says, I've given you the words. Get out there and do your job. And the words of the psalmist, the comfortable words of the psalmist are, I've been with you and you have come to me time and time again. And I have been here for you. You are not left. You are still part of the covenant. You are comforted. This up and down, this humanity that is found in there. And then in the reading of Paul's letter to the Corinthians, this beautiful 13th chapter of Corinthians, it's read at so many weddings, it's all about love. And when it's read at a wedding, everybody gets all warm and, oh, man, yes, it's right there in the Bible. It's all about love. I'm doing a little Bishop Curry thing here now. Right there in the Bible. This love, though, look at the passage. This love is a maturity. There's faith and hope. Those abide. But the greatest of these is love. Love never ends. Love never fails. Love is mature. That kind of love, that agape, which is the word behind that, is a love that is beyond love of family. It is beyond emotional love and erotic love. It is a love of sacrifice and a love of giving. It is a love that has learned its lessons. I'm just a boy. I'm not worthy. No. Love empowers you. I'm afraid to do this. And the psalmist says, no. Love empowers you. I am love and I will take care of you in whatever it is you have to do. So this lesson from Luke, this overture of Jesus preaching, is our marching order. That no matter how weak we feel, there is a jubilee. There is a reset that we need not fear. Now, if you've been paying any attention at all, unless you've been living under a rock for the last 2 years, we're in a reset, people. not only in the whole of society, but even the little bits and pieces that we call the church, in our communities, in our habits, in our families. We're in a reset. And the good news here is that it's happened before, and God's in the midst of it. I don't know how I can get through this. I'm just a boy. I'm just a child. The psalmist says, I'm with you. And love says, you'll get through it by loving, by beating swords into plowshares, by recognizing the value of all life, even peoples whose complexion is different from ours. You get that? Love is mature. Love helps us to endure. It endures all things. Luke's gospel message begins here with Jesus and this overture that steps on a few toes, but it gets into your head and it arouses the thoughts and feelings of all of us that we can do better, that we're called to better, and that we're never far from God's love and the strength that comes from God's grace. That's good news.